Hotep family, greetings, greetings. Welcome, welcome. This is a special edition of Real Talk with ZSJ. Not a planned discussion tonight, so I am not going to be on here long. And I really feel bad that I even have to come on here and even address this piece, but we're organized by social media and mainstream media and all of these, different things. And so I'm just here. I'm going to address some things really quick with you all, and then I'm going to hop off of this subject and get back to the work at hand. But I do feel like, there's a couple things I want to address. So number one, thanks, everybody who's here so far. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do that. It's important, just to subscribe and encourage other people to subscribe, to have a unapologetically Black perspective, uncensored, unfiltered, and all of that good stuff. So listen, y'all, my really for I would say the last couple of weeks, but really in the last couple of days, my timeline on social media has just been filled, with information, people's opinions about, Kanye or Ye West. And I couple of observations or a couple of themes. I am noticing people who are not well read, not very knowledgeable, about a lot of things, that the brother brought up in several of his interviews. Um, the other piece I want to acknowledge as well is that I'm not a follower. I'm not a huge you know, consumer and things like that. So I actually never have owned any of Kanye West or Yee's products. I actually hate his shoes. I think they're ugly. Always have, never owned any of them. And I always look at people weird who be having them on because I'm just like, this is crazy. But anyway, and I don't necessarily I mean, I like his music, but I'm like, I would not describe myself as a follower or like just a cheerleader or anything like that. What I am is a person that is a critical thinker. I'm well read, and I'm very knowledgeable about, different things, as it relates to our community and into our history. um and with all of that as context, I think that people can hold multiple things at the same time, but it looks like we feel like we should be forced to do what other people outside of our community want us to do, or how we should, be, reacting. I actually want to deal with, you know a lot of what he said. Number one, obviously, I thought it was very sad and sickening for him to, repeat, what's her name? Did the documentary so called on Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. Number one, his comments about George Floyd were just, I mean, I didn't even understand the connection, why he said it. Anyway, obviously, I thought that was reprehensible. So I don't know, what his point was with that. And I thought it was sad. And clearly I don't agree with it. Candace Owens, yeah, thanks, brother. Wisdom bars. He said other things, white lives matter. Now, let me jump on that. The T-shirt. I saw that and kept scrolling, and I was shocked that it literally took up so much space in people's mental space. Like people were really reacting like hyper emotional to that. And I'm like, it's a shirt. And I'm like, okay. And plus it's like, it's him. Like these are the type of things that he do. I literally kept scrolling. I did not have a visceral or emotional reaction to it at all. I don't care. I mean, I don't even think that it's that important. You know what I mean? And that's what I kind of want to talk about, is that we need to understand when distractions are what they are. When, somebody's throwing a rock in another direction, but then there's a distraction to take you off of what just got thrown in the other direction to something else that is absolutely meaningless. I mean, the teach really, y'all, like, why ain't y'all concerned about the actual policymakers, the actual elected officials, and people in the in different positions who actually make policy that ensure white lives matter, right? I literally just saw, and this is the type of stuff that don't get the kind of play that it needs. But a brother out of Cleveland, Ohio. For some of you all know, I was born in Cleveland. I'm from Ohio, and the brother used to be on the city council there. Brother Bashir, if anybody follows him on on Instagram or any social media, he was actually the first elected Muslim to the Cleveland City Council several years ago. And that brother posted something that was really important. In the same week, the same judge sentenced a black woman and a white woman, but gave them two totally different sentences, but the crimes were similar. The crimes were stealing money while in office. The black woman, I believe, was on Warrensville City Council. She was, that's a suburb of Cleveland. But the white woman was on some other type of government institution, but she also stole or embezzled money while she was in there in office. But the white woman did not get nearly as much time as the black woman did. And so these are the types of things. So that's the type of white lives matter. Do you understand? Like, get outraged about actual things that's impacting people's everyday lives and material conditions. Like, I think we have to become so much more sophisticated in our thinking, family. That's really, to me, all it's about. And as far as Kanye West, back to Ye, as far as he's concerned, points were made. Were made. Just because it came out of his mouth don't make some of the things that he said any less true. And Minister Farrakhan has been talking about some of the things that he highlighted for decades. Griff, others, like, there's so many people. It's repetition. Like, people know about these things. And now, since Kanye is saying it, don't, there's an issue. And so my whole thing is, without like really getting too deeply political, because again, this is the subject at hand, a lot of black people are just not well read on, and we're not, really knowledgeable on, because a lot of the information is censored. Let's just be real. A lot of the information is just censored. And so that's the piece that I think that's critical, that people are missing. I'm literally seeing black people rejoice and literally talk like slaves on social media, saying things like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, and things like that. Like, instead of people viewing what's happening right now as a way in which, okay, it looks like, we really need to be organizing, for self-determination and power. Now, there has always been segments of our community that have wanted to organize for self-determination, Kuji Chagalia, and power. And I'm not saying that that's what Kanye is doing, right? Like, clearly, the brother is clearly, he's a very, let me just say, he's a complex person, right? He's different. Um, and there's a lot of things that I don't agree with politically with him. And people that truly know me know that. People who know my politics know that. But at the same time, the rejoicing and joining of a lynch mob, I can never do that. I can never do that. You know, White Lives Matter, talking about Candace Owens, you know, him calling himself being a deep thinker, saying things like, slavery was a choice, even though I believe that comment was taken out of context once I listened to it in its full. But what I'm saying is that you can take things from one person and leave the rest. I do that with everybody. There's not one person that I agree with 100% of the time. And I hope that's true for you as well. But this idea that we got to sit up and drag him, we got to sit up and like join the lynch mob, like, nah, I don't think that that's cool at all. Here's the other piece. I don't think people should lose everything because of an opinion. I don't. I think that people are missing the fact that a lot of what we're seeing happening is really an infringement upon the First Amendment. Let me clear that. Let me be clear about that. There are certainly limitations to free speech. You can't stand up on the airplane and yell bomb, right? Like, clearly. You can't, there's just certain limitations, right? You can't say, I'm going to kill somebody in a public space and think you're not going to get a reaction. Like, there are limits. But politically, the things that he were talking about were political in nature. And so for people to think that people are supposed to lose everything, like, you agreeing with fascism, yo, because like it's Kanye today, but it might be you tomorrow, right? Or somebody that you love or somebody in your family. It's about, like, in my opinion, looking at the bigger picture. And that is, I see so many people missing nuance. There's one post, that I felt like was good, and I felt like, that makes sense. You know what I mean? And there was a brother named Corey Camp, and he said, last Kanye post. So I'm gonna read what he said. He said, Kanye is getting exactly the response he wants. No need to feel sorry for him. And I don't. I actually think he's going to be fine. This brother continued, he was proving a point that's going to cost him a hell of a lot of money, but a point nonetheless. He said, I watched the Drink Champs interview and points were made. And it's actually playing out exactly like he said it would. He might not be a genius, but he's far from stupid. Then the brother said, P.S. I'm not a Ye stan. I'm not even a fan of his music or his life. He lost me many, many moons ago, but points were made, and I'm not ignoring it just because Kanye said it. Nuance, right? Nuance. Like, why do Black people join lynch mobs to throw other Black people away? And let me interject something else. The same Black people that's talking wild about Ye were also the same ones on social media telling Black people they were stupid if they didn't vote for Joe Biden. So an actual white supremacist who had 40 years of history, right? For us to go back and look at his political record of proven anti-Blackness, okay? Proven. The literal author of the crime bill that kidnapped hundreds of thousands of Black men and boys out of our community and sat them in jails for decades. Some of them still in prison for decades. So I'd be confused about Black people like that. So you can forgive. And then during the campaign season, this is the white supremacists that told you that if you was Black and you didn't vote for him, you ain't Black. So these are the same people who want to cancel Ye, see him jump off a bridge, see all of these different horrible things happen to him and join the lynch mob. These are the same people who could forgive Biden and was actually out campaigning for him and calling other Black people stupid who didn't vote for him. So I'm trying to make it make sense. I'm trying to understand the logic of Black people like that. And to me, it sounds like you really are just motivated only by what you hear in the news, which is why this live is titled, Black people, please read more, study more, turn the TV off. The media has a long history of manipulating people, period. And this is why it's so frustrating to see us fall for the same tools over and over and over again. Like, really? The same people who throwing Kanye West or Ye, he wants to be respected, Ye, they're throwing Ye away are the same ones that just defended a couple of weeks ago the no voting, no bucking video. Okay? So no, I can't take you seriously at all. If you don't have the same type of smoke against people who have actually impacted the actual living conditions and livelihoods of Black people in mass over somebody that wore a White Lives Matter t-shirt, somebody who is potentially, like I said, I'm not in that man's medical record, but it's been said When he's been admitted to a hospital in the past that he's been diagnosed as bipolar because he wore a White Lives Matter t-shirt. Oh, it's time to hang him. I'm confused. So that's all. I like I said, I didn't really want to be here long, you all, but there was this is just something I had to get off my chest because it seems, and it's people that I actually thought were conscious, like people that I thought were knowledgeable, joining in on the lynch mob. And it just goes to show you how powerful social media is now, right? Because the algorithms are certainly the new manipulative tool that, like, literally all you see is, people agreeing with basically their own oppression. And so I think people can hold many truths. Like, while Ye is definitely not somebody who is a civil rights leader, he ain't a leader at all, really. Not somebody that, clearly that we want to like say, oh, okay, yeah, he's certainly, about Black people, because we know that that's not fully the case. But at the same time, I also don't think that everything that he said could simply be thrown away. I do think it's time to have real conversations with people about the community and our relationship to them, and somehow how some of these things can be exploitative in nature. We should be able to sit down and have a legitimate, um, not just conversation, but even moving on to, okay, how are we going to change this type of relationship in business? I think that's legitimate. And I think we have every right to do that. I think that it's time for Black people to start thinking in terms of their human dignity and get out of the slave mindset. There's so many people that operate out of fear instead of coming from a place of power. That's all I'm saying. Coming from a place of power and stop operating out of fear. Because unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing mostly. And I get, like people saying, I'm not about to defend him because, he shitted on the ancestors. And it's not about defending him. It's about defending the fundamental right to discuss some things that is perceived to be wrong in business relationships. That should be a legitimate place where people can start to say, okay, let's then take a look then, and let's figure out, like, how can we, if we're going to move forward in business, how can we make sure that we're not weaponizing talent against communities? How can we make sure that we're not putting people in contracts that are literally just extremely exploitative? You know what I mean? So I really think that we need to revamp, as a community, get serious about, our liberation and our self-determination, because that's what I want. I get that there are several, hundred thousands of Black people who may not want that, right? They may not want that. But for those of us who do, I think it's time for us to be serious about collaborating and mapping out a plan, certainly, to get there. So yeah, this is not about like defending, him as a person, but I'm also not throwing away the history of the exploitative relationships that we know that has been, very um just endemic in Hollywood. You know what I mean? And in other parts of the entertainment industry. I don't think that we should be privileging one community over any other community, when it comes to what's right and wrong. I thought that somebody aptly pointed out, that, his contracts are not severed, when he said, horrible things about, our ancestors, talking about Guy and things like that. So, you know, I think that that's a contradiction that people are choosing to ignore. Some people are choosing to ignore. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm not joining the lynch mob. I encourage you not to join the lynch mob. And especially if you don't know the history and if you haven't read the texts that have been written on these subjects, you really should bow out. I'm serious. There's several, books out there. Dr. Tony Martin, who was an African-centered thinker and scholar. He was really an expert on the movement of Marcus Garvey, has written a lot of books on this subject as well. Well, not a lot of books. He's written several books, but he's written on the subject. He is um, a thought leader on this piece. In terms of understanding the relationship, between, some of the exploitative nature of entertainment and other things like that, as it relates to Black people. Um, Another is one that the NY put out that got a lot of backlash, as you all know. If you old enough, if you as old as me, you're familiar with that in the 90s. Those books are out there. Really try to become knowledgeable on different things before you jump into a conversation and not really having the full understanding and the full, context. That's really, really, I kind of like just wanted to make sure I got on here and said, because I think that's critical. I think that we can critique our people without throwing them away. We can discipline, and we should discipline our people without throwing them away or without joining somebody else's lynch mob. And that's just basically all I wanted to say on that. And it's not about ignoring the fact that, he said some hurtful things, about the community and just other things that I don't agree with him, politically, at all. So like I said, this was just an impromptu. Again, if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This is a channel that is fully committed to knowledge, empowerment, and deep love for Black people. If you're looking for Maury Povich type energy, this is not the channel for you. This is a channel that is very serious. But share. And yeah, hopefully you all join me tomorrow night for regularly scheduled programming. Really excited to welcome the brother King Randall on to the show tomorrow. We'll be talking about his work, with building a school for Black boys down in Albany, Georgia. We'll also talk about some of the recent election things that he's been involved with, down in Georgia, and bringing on different voices and hearing from different people, that's doing work in the community. I think is really important, and I host those types of people on this channel. So I really hope those of you all who are listening now will join us tomorrow. I think it'll be a great conversation. I'm really looking for, some good interaction, and maybe we might even bring a couple of y'all up on stage towards the end of the conversation with the brother, to allow you all to ask your questions to me or to him directly. So yeah, hopefully I will see you all tomorrow night. But yeah, I couldn't post all of this on social media. And so yes. So thank you all. Thank you, Brother Adrian. I hadn't been really keeping up with all the chat, but just thank you all so much, everybody that's in there. Yes, absolutely. I find it helpful to watch Black thinkers. I do too. I've actually been listening to Minister Farrakhan heavily. Let's see, about last 2.5 weeks, I have been listening, just binge listening to Minister Farrakhan speeches from 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And man, I'm gonna have to even do a whole show just to recap what I've learned and to really contextualize a lot of things, that I've learned. Yes. So peace, everybody. Glad that you all came in and built with me and listened. But yeah, just, feel free to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and share this out. And like I said, tomorrow, regularly scheduled programming, 8 p.m. Eastern with King Randall. Make sure y'all come back. Peace.